Chapter 4, Part 10. He's after the source code, which he'll get once he's decrypted the data from all three sectors, AG said over the private chat he opened with Lugamon. Doraemon's data sector was already complete. Ryudamon's vaccine sector decryption was paused for the moment. He's also trying to override me and re-engage the restraints, Lugamon huffed. And we can't just attack him directly. He's only a video projection. But then, how does he plan to hurt us? He's got pawns. Entities he can control to... What the? Lugamon yelped. Metal cannon! Doraemon attacked without warning. Eiji covered his head and fell to the ground. Lugamon dodged, the metal projectile missing them by a hair's breadth. The hell do you think you're doing? Yeah, what the hell, Kosuke? Eiji barked. Kosuke was still in a daze over the news of Saya's death, but he turned his head toward the commotion. What are you doing, Doraemon? Kosuke mumbled, his face contorting in confusion. A bad sign. A loud thunk shook the source domain. Is someone else controlling you? Doraemon didn't respond. Its eyes were vacant. Professor! Eiji protested. You're controlling them, aren't you, Ryusenji? Lugamon snarled, eyes fixed on the professor's video image. One needn't be linked to a Digimon to control them. You codecrackers do it all the time. All you need is the right suit of tools. No! Yulin yelled, shaking her head. It's one thing to restrain Doraemon while Kosuke's mind-linked, but engaging external control, that shouldn't be possible. But it is, precisely because they're mind-linked, the professor said with a smile. The presence of Kosuke's consciousness in Doraemon's Digicore is a gigantic backdoor. This is because of me? Kosuke wondered, looking down at his hands. His Digimon linker was sending off two different signals. One, obviously, wasn't his. Tartarus, the legendary codecracker, was powerless. How weak are the broken-hearted? Professor Ryusenji said in his classic, overly dramatic way. Yulin and Eiji tried to get Kosuke's attention. He heard none of their plaintive screams, their sympathetic appeals, their fury. He sank further inward. No words could heal his broken heart. Doraemon, too, was powerless to resist and succumbed to the professor. They were nothing more than a puppet now. Digivolve! The professor bellowed. Again? Eiji yelped, recoiling in shock. Digivolve to champion, then your ultimate level Dorogreymon form, and then to your mega level Dorogoramon form. With a mighty roar, Doraemon digivolved once more into Dorogoramon. Its cold, lifeless eyes stared back at the humans and other Digimon. What a lovely tableau of despair, Professor Ryusenji trumped, standing beside the silver dragon he'd unleashed. So, we're gonna have to fight Dorogoramon? Eiji asked Lugamon. Now then, Eiji, you make quick decisions. So, which will it be? Help me decrypt the data that will lead me to the source Digimon, and all is forgiven. That's all I want. You'll be my pupil, both at DDL and the university, the professor offered. A bargain with the devil. Tokyo Electric? Just think of it. A Kashi apartment in the Denrin district. All you can eat privileges at the DDL cafe. Full employee benefits. Perhaps you'll meet a lovely lady among the other employees. Assuming things don't work out between you and Hatsune, that is. What? Eiji was overwhelmed. You have 10 seconds. I look forward to your response, the professor said, and began counting down. 10, 9, 8. AJ recalled the B he got on his mock university entrance exam. If he could skip the exam altogether and get into the university, he'd eventually be able to work his way up to working with a high-profile company like Abaddon Electronics. With some luck, he could become a manager, or a director, or even start his own business. He began to dream about the multitude of futures opening up before him. He would finally be a winner. No more hourly jobs. Stability enough to plan ahead 10, maybe even 20 years. He'd be set for life. Everything would break his way for far longer than he ever imagined. As it stood, he had no freedom, seeing as he didn't have an official job or any training. He certainly didn't have money or power, and no trust in society. He had nothing but time, shot through with the anxiety of instability. That would be nice. Mocha has a boyfriend already. But other than that...
You can't be serious, AG,
Lugamon barked. Their head whipped around to face Eiji, who simply put his hand on their forehead and held them at bay. Listen, Lugamon, he went on, patting the interface on Lugamon's forehead. I've always wanted to find a way into the winner's circle. I want the flashy lifestyle. I got a taste of it the first time I went to DDL. I finally felt like an adult with a real job. There was the dream, and I mean, it brought us together.
Sure, but...
Lugamon said, giving Eiji the benefit of the doubt. I knew you'd understand. I'll personally guarantee your salary. Now, Professor Ryusenji cut in, raising his arms in welcome. Then again, Eiji shrugged. I'm not the type to make decisions based on simple lists of pros and cons. Am I? Besides, it's like the professor said. The digital world can change lives. So it was for Kosuke Kisakata, Shu Yulin, and Leon Alexander, whose lives were ruined by their encounters with the professor's forays into the digital world. To say nothing of Saya Ryusenji's death, which was now just a bargaining chip to her own father. Eiji wasn't about to endorse that behavior. Eiji had seen firsthand how the digital world brought people together around their adventures in the new world. It was a place that should change people's lives for the better. It could give life meaning. It could make time invaluable. It let people live their lives, and it was impossible to put a price on that. I came here in search of a way to emerge victorious in the digital world. I wanted to change my life, and I'm gonna find a way to leave my mark on this place. 'Cause at the end of the day, I'm still a codecracker, through and through. He'd raise his sails to the networked winds and keep looking for a way to put his stamp on the digital world, with Lugamon there at his side. They'd save their friends and press onward together. What more could he want from life? You've got to forge your own path, and Eiji knew just how he was going to do it. He struck a defiant pose, one he thought was sure to rub Professor Ryusenji the wrong way. The professor pursed his lips in disappointment.
That's why I stick with you, AG. There might be some bumps along the road, but we know what has to be done. You've said it yourself,
Lugamon said, raising their front legs up to give Eiji a little push on the butt.
Bumps along the road?
Eiji, haven't I given you my highest marks? The professor wheedled.
Why are you still talking, old man?
Lugamon barked. Like I said, I respect you as a mentor, Eiji said, trying to keep his voice calm. I wanted to be a major figure in the digital world, just like you. Professor Ryosenji stood in silence, unsure of what to say. This lowly codecracker who had nothing and would amount to nothing was sticking to his pretentious ideals. But now I see I was wrong to put you on that pedestal. I shouldn't aim to be like you. In other words, AG hesitated.
You make us sick. Get out of our way!
Lugamon cut in before AG could choose his words. The professor remained silent for a moment. His warm, performative smile was gone, replaced by a displeasure he could no longer hide. Biting the hand that feeds, I see. Why do you continue to pick the losing side in this fight? I know I'm giving up a lot. The university meals in the cafe, all of it out of the window. But I do what I do for the people who believe in me. The rest will work itself out. He thought of Leon, who tried to help AG as best as he knew how. This is your last chance. I presume your answer won't change? Professor Ryosenji said as he sent command to Dorugoramon. The Digimon targeted Lugamon. We only have one life. I can't help but come to my friend's aid, even when they've all lost hope. Codecracker freedom may not be perfect, but it's still freedom.
Showtime, AG,
Lugamon barked. Lugamon, Digivolve, AG said, cutting his hololization and returning to the Digicore. Lugamon quickly digivolved all the way to their ultimate level form, Solugamon. Hellfire poured out of the generators on Solugamon's shoulders, which emitted a low rumble as they exhausted the tremendous heat within. This form had complete control over the demonic wolf within, and a few parts of its armor plating were now covered in ancient code that burned bright as a star in the night sky. It had the ability to convert the massive amounts of hellfire energy within to boost its attack, defense, or posture at a moment's notice. Prominence laser! A beam of hellfire, the temperature of the sun, shot out of Solugamon's fingers, compounded by electromagnetic forces to form a plasma several thousand degrees Kelvin in temperature. What once was a flamethrower from Lugamon's champion form was now a beam with far more range that could incinerate whatever it touched with inextinguishable flames. The beam connected, causing a hissing sound like meat touching a hot cast iron pan. What the? Solugamon cried out in shock. Dorugoramon stood its ground. It caught the prominence laser in its bare hands, flesh sizzling as it closed its fists and extinguished the inextinguishable. Wow, very impressive, Professor Ryosenji said excitedly. That was just a greeting, Solugamon said in return. We barely saw any of the fight with Oriomon, Eiji said timidly, recalling their late arrival to the fighting at the gateway and subsequent battle with Satsuki's cadre of Digipolice troops. Now, he'd have to reckon with the awesome power of Tartarus's partner Digimon on his own. Dorugoramon has a shockwave attack, Dorudin, and a charge attack, Brave Metal. That sounds simple, but those attacks make it effective at long and close range. There are no obvious openings to take advantage of in either attack.
You sure you want to help us, squad leader?
Eiji asked, turning to look at Yulin. Oriomon's armor is made possible to withstand a few hits and strike back. But in your ultimate form, a single hit is likely to fry your Digicore. No way! Solugamon countered. Excuse you? They're taking commands from software tools. They won't be anywhere near as powerful as when you two fought, Sol Lugamon said. I'm with squad leader though, Eiji said. Tools or not, Professor Ryusenji is on the other end of what that terminal is, and Yulin's way more of what Dorogoromon can do than we have. Sol Lugamon swung its wrench-like mace Vanagant through the air, struck a pose, and slammed its base into the ground. Fear will not hold us back. I can't argue with that. Time to steel ourselves for the fight ahead, Eiji said, firing himself up. Let's fight like the scrappy underdogs we are. You, old man Tartarus, and Eiji aren't heroes or gods. You're human, Sol Lugamon said, pointing Vanagant at the professor's projection. If you're trying to buy time with another one of your speeches, and I grant that you're good at it, you'd better make me think again, the professor said sternly. You can't run out the clock on me. I'm simply controlling Dorogoromon with tools. Kosuke, on the other hand, he might well go DMIA. Eiji skipped a beat. Kosuke and Dorogoromon's limits aren't the same as yours either. They've been at this a long time, and he's a legendary codecracker, the professor sneered. Eiji couldn't possibly tell how much time was left without some sort of connection to Dorogoromon, which meant waiting things out was off the table. Even with half its power, Dorogoromon would still be a formidable foe. Let's take things to the next level, shall we? Professor Ryosenji said as Dorogoromon absorbed his video projection. He's adjusting his viewpoint. Does he think he can get close to mind-link performance? Eiji wondered, poring over the data lighting up his virtual monitor. Dorodin! A shockwave roared across the source domain's vast expanse. Sol Lugamon owled, set their shoulder generators to thrust, and flew into the air, where they'd have better range of movement. Fast and unpredictable. Sol Lugamon has mega-level maneuverability. But why would they? Yulin said, cutting herself off as it dawned on her. Sol Lugamon wanted to take this fight to the air, forcing Dorogoromon to attack from a distance, so they could time the Digimon's attacks. But to Yulin, there was a fool's errand. There wouldn't be any time. Several stray bullets hit the Dorudin's shockwave and broke it up in the air. Sol Lugamon glanced in Yulin's direction. Committed to helping us, eh? They said wryly. Yulin scoffed. Sol Lugamon looked further down below at Kosuke, still a drained husk of a man. At the immobile Ryudamon, at the Black Agumon and Pulsemon that had been teleported into the stone circle. Professor Ryusenji remained laser-focused on Eiji's plan to lure him into the air. He readied another blast from Dorugoramon's Dorudin, this time aimed not at Eiji or Sol Lugamon, but the stone circle itself. Yulin swallowed hard. He couldn't possibly risk crushing Ryudamon. That would make decryption impossible. Killing Kosuke would sever the mind link upon which he relied. That left Pulsemon and the Black Agumon. The old man was cunning. She'd give him that. You're gonna use Pulsemon as bargaining chip now? You're disgusting. Bluff or no bluff, Eiji was out of time. Skull Rage! Sol Lugamon left trails of hellfire in their wake as they shot toward Dorugoramon and flung Vanagant out ahead for a quick strike. It's funny, Professor Ryosenji said, how easy it is to control humans, even without software tools. The Dorudin shot was a bluff after all. Sol Lugamon's speed no longer mattered. Professor Ryosenji cancelled his attack and flung Dorugoramon's arm out to deliver a powerful backhanded strike that smashed into Vanagant and Solugamon in one clean motion. Eiji felt the shock within the Digicore, but didn't force Solugamon to recover quickly enough for a counterattack. It was better to be knocked back than suffer any more damage in the moment. Now we're getting somewhere. Dorugoramon is quite fearsome, even with software tools. If only I weren't stuck using just half its power, Professor Ryosenji said, nevertheless quite pleased with himself. So, grating. He's in far too good a mood, Solugamon growled. Let's try this, Eiji said, inputting a comment. Solugamon loosed another round of the Prominence Laser, which Dorugoramon deflected with one arm. Solugamon launched another, and another, and another. Unable to fully contain each shot, Dorugoramon slowly became engulfed in flames. The beams lacked the piercing ability of a truly calibrated shot, however, meaning the flames never quite caught and were thus quickly extinguished. Smoke billowed off Dorugoramon's body. It was a nice try, but you'll have to be more imaginative than that, Professor Ryosenji sneered, paying it no mind. The software tools gave him no sense of Dorugoramon's pain. That was a privilege reserved for Kosuke, who remained mind-linked. Well, I've certainly had enough for now. I'm quite busy, he said. That's a lie. Research is all you have time for, Eiji challenged. Oh, very not, Eiji. You're absolutely correct about that, which is why I have to get back to work. Lucky for you, I can't afford to destroy your Digicore if I want to finish decrypting the source domain's data. Tell me, have you ever peered into hell? Ah, right. You lost your parents in that awful plane crash. Surely that gave you a glimpse. You! Eiji spluttered, the words catching in his throat. How do you feel about theme park rides? Would you like to experience the same fear and pain your parents felt? Perhaps you wouldn't feel so comfortable defying me if you did. I'll break you yet. Eiji couldn't square this side of the professor with the one he knew in his mind. The preeminent digital world researcher. A man worthy of Eiji's respect. The man who placed protection of the digital world and the Digimon within above all else. That outlook profoundly moved Eiji once upon a time, as did the ethos that any involvement with the digital world necessarily involved meddling in the lives of Digimon. Those were the thoughts of a man with reverence for the digital world, a love of the digital world that curdled into greed. Greed, the familiar motivator that instantly removes compassion from the equation. Suddenly, it didn't seem to matter how many people the professor hurt. He hadn't killed anyone, but he chewed them up and spat them out, leaving them a shell of their former selves. It wasn't all that different in the end, yet he could still sleep at night and carry on ruining more lives the next day. He was a very human monster from the real world. And now he was loose in the digital world. Eiji wasn't about to be its next victim. But he also wasn't sure if he could try to cut a deal or flee. Neither option was appealing, but the alternatives were worse. Ryosenji, you monster! I'm sick of this game of tag. It's a waste of time, especially considering I've got Pulsemon trapped in... Professor Ryosenji cut himself short. Pulsemon was gone. The smoke surrounding Dorugoramon slowly lifted, revealing an empty space where Yulin, Ryudamon, and the Black Agumon stood within the stone circle. Only Cusco remained at the altar, and he wasn't alone. A Tyrannomon? Where did you come from? The professor asked, simultaneously befuddled and disappointed. The creature stood next to Cusco, looking concerned. Cusco didn't move a muscle. What are you doing, Cusco? Come on! Eiji whispered. Ah, I see what you've done, Eiji. Using your little Tyrannomon under cover of smoke. Very cute, the professor griped. The Prominent's laser blasts created just enough smoke to allow the Tyrannomon from Eiji's Digimon dog to move the others to safety. But where had they taken them? Professor Ryusenji wondered. Where was nowhere to hide in the source domain? The altar. Of course. How else could it get so high up off the ground? A network of pillars and blocks below suspended the altar and the stone circle surrounding it above the ground. That left plenty of space underneath the structure in which to hide. But now there was no escape. Not so long as Dorugoromon was under his control and Ryuramon was still restrained. Tyrannomon! Old Man Tartarus is fine where he is, Solugamon barked. Pulsemon was the main point of concern, and they were safe. Tyrannomon won? Is that you? Hide, quick! The words had scarcely left Eiji's lips when he heard a wet thud, followed by the Tyrannomon's pained roar. Static and noise poured from a wound in the Tyrannomon's shoulder. He never even saw the shot rip through the air. How unsightly! This is no place for such weak Digimon, the professor said, breaking Dorugoromon out of its Dorudin stance. It had honed its shockwave to a fine point, mimicking a bullet. Tyrannomon! Eiji cried out. Dorugoromon can be as precise as it is powerful. That Tyrannomon could be turned to dust if I so choose. The Tyrannomon dropped to the ground, trembling, too terrified to move. It wouldn't be able to withstand another hit from the Mega-level hunter. In fact, perhaps I will. Only this time, I'll send the entire hive instead of one little bee. Dorugoromon launched a salvo of focused shockwaves at the small Digimon. It was quite surprised to find itself unharmed when it opened its eyes after the barrage subsided. It saw fire the color of the sun, and felt Solugamon's arms wrapped tightly around it. Ah! Solugamon roared, grabbing at the arm that had taken the brunt of the attack. I confess, I don't know what you were thinking, Eiji, the professor said, aghast. Throwing away your partner Digimon's arm for a piddly Tyrannomon you could easily replace? Preposterous! Dorugoromon remained still as Professor Ryusenji struggled to make sense of Eiji's strategy. Solugamon's left arm hung limp at their side. Even with the rapid-fire attack diminishing the power of each individual shot, one hit from the Dorudin was all it took to wreck Solugamon's arm. You saved my Tyrannomon, Eiji said softly. You leave my packmates out of this, Solugamon bellowed. It was all instinct. Solugamon was the boss of the 9th district, after all. The threat activated the wolf-like data at the heart of their digicore that compelled them to protect the members of their pack at all costs. You asked if we've ever peered into hell? Eiji said, returning his focus to battle ahead. We'll show you what hell looks like, Ryusenji, Solugamon howled. Eiji and Solugamon were synced, and ready to digivolve one last time. They'd finally found true strength, and they were going to use it to protect those closest to them. A bright light enveloped Solugamon, and a new Digimon emerged in their place. Fenrilugamon, Mega, Dark Beast, Virus.